Trevor's laugh cut through the lobby before I even realized everyone was staring at my feet. I'd just stepped inside carrying my toolbox, my jeans dusty from crawling under a sink upstairs, when his voice boomed across the marble floor. Then. He pointed down at my steel-toe boots. We letting construction workers into the grand opening now? A few of the guests chuckled. The sound echoed off the high ceiling, bouncing around the renovated lobby with its new chandelier and polished floors. My sister Natasha smirked into her wine glass from across the room. I saw her shoulders shake with silent laughter. I stood there in my work boots, the ones with paint spatters and scuff marks from 3 years of repairs, feeling heat rise up my neck like a flood. My toolbox suddenly felt heavy in my hand. The weight of everyone's judgment pressed down on me. Trevor shook his head like I'd embarrassed him personally. Like my presence here was some kind of mistake that needed correcting. Seriously, Mallory, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. His tone was somewhere between amused and disgusted. Couldn't you at least dress like someone who belongs here? Someone snorted. Someone whispered behind their hand. I could hear the elevator music playing softly in the background, suddenly too loud in the awkward silence. My fingers tightened around the handle of my toolbox until my knuckles went white. Then, Trevor added the part that made my stomach drop like an anchor. Maintenance entrance is in the back, sweetheart. He gestured toward the rear hallway with his wine glass, champagne sloshing slightly. Service staff aren't supposed to use the main lobby during events. Laughter rippled across the room. Not everyone laughed. Some people looked uncomfortable, but enough did that the humiliation felt complete. My chest felt tight, but I kept my face calm, neutral, professional. Because if I showed how much it hurt, Trevor would only enjoy it more. He fed on reactions. He didn't know what those boots had built. Didn't know they'd walked through flooded basements and climbed rickety ladders. Didn't know they'd stood in hardware store aisles at midnight looking for emergency pipe fittings. He mocked my work boots, then discovered I owned the building. My name is Mallory Tate. And those boots were the reason the building still had running water tonight. The reason the electricity worked. The reason this grand opening party could even happen. Trevor raised his glass higher, turning to address the crowd. Let's toast to the new management team, he announced. To the future of this property. Natasha raised her glass too, beaming beside him. They looked like the perfect power couple. Successful. In control. Everything I apparently wasn't. I stood there with my toolbox, still wearing my work clothes, and felt invisible despite being the center of their joke. My name is Mallory Tate, and that building was my father's entire life. Not just a business, not just an investment, his life's work. 3 floors of solid brick construction, 22 residential units, every apartment unique, every hallway telling a story if you knew where to look. Every cracked tile and leaky pipe had a memory attached to it. Dad fixing the 3rd floor radiator on Christmas Eve. Dad teaching me how to replace a toilet flange when I was 16. Dad staying up all night monitoring the sump pump during the flood of 2019. My sister Natasha loved the idea of ownership. Loved telling people her family owned property. Loved the status and the prestige. But I lived the reality of it. The 3 a.m. emergency calls, the tenant disputes, the endless maintenance, the city inspections, the permit applications. Natasha saw an asset. I saw a living thing that needed constant care. When Dad got sick 2 years ago, everything changed overnight. The building that had always run smoothly suddenly revealed how much it had depended on one man's constant attention. The winter Dad collapsed in the basement trying to fix the boiler. I realized just how fragile everything was. How quickly it could all fall apart without someone who understood every pipe, every wire, every structural beam. That winter changed everything. And not just because Dad almost died. The winter Dad collapsed, the boiler broke down twice in the same month. January cold seeping into apartments, tenants calling at all hours, furious and freezing. The second time it broke, pipes burst on the 2nd floor. Water damage, emergency repairs, chaos. And my sister Natasha? She stayed home in her warm apartment across town, said she had work, said she couldn't handle the stress. But I was the one in boots and gloves at midnight, learning how to bleed radiators and replace pressure valves. following YouTube videos on my phone while Dad watched from his hospital bed via video call, coaching me through each step. Tighten it clockwise, Mal. No, the other way. That's it. The tenants saw me that winter, saw me showing up when things broke, saw me apologizing for the cold and actually fixing the problem, instead of just promising to call someone. Mrs. Patterson from 2C brought me coffee one freezing morning. Your father would be proud, she'd said quietly. I hadn't cried yet that winter. But those words almost broke me. Dad started watching me differently after that. Not like a daughter he needed to protect. Like a successor he needed to prepare. I didn't understand the shift then, didn't realize what he was doing, just thought he was being a proud father. I should have paid more attention. He didn't say much during his recovery. Dad wasn't a talker, but he started teaching me everything he knew about the building. How to read the lease agreements, where to file permits with the city, how to maintain the repair logs that satisfied insurance requirements, how to read the city's inspection codes and stay ahead of violations. He showed me the accounting system, the tenant files, the vendor contracts, the emergency procedures. You need to understand all of it, Mal, he'd said one afternoon while we sat in his cluttered office. Not just the repairs, the business side too. I thought it was just because I was the only one willing to learn, the only one who showed up, the only one who cared about more than just the monthly income. I didn't realize Dad was planning ahead, making sure the building would survive him. I didn't know I was being trained to take over. Then Trevor appeared, and everything got complicated. Trevor Hale. Tall, good-looking, charming in the way that makes people trust him immediately. Expensive suits, confident handshake, big smile. He married my sister 6 months before Dad passed away. A quick courtship, a beautiful wedding. Natasha was radiant. I tried to be happy for her. Tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling in my gut. Within a week of the wedding, Trevor was already walking through the building like he owned it. Talking to tenants, making promises about upgrades and modernization. He'd never held a wrench in his life. But he loved giving orders about how things should be done. One night, about a month after the wedding, I was fixing a water leak in Unit 3B. Elderly tenant, Mr. Rodriguez, had called about water pooling under his kitchen sink. I was on my back under the cabinet, wrench in hand, when I heard Trevor's voice in the doorway talking to Mr. Rodriguez. Don't worry, we're gonna get professionals in here to handle all the maintenance soon. Real contractors, no more DIY fixes. His tone made it sound like my repairs weren't real, weren't legitimate. When I slid out from under the sink, Trevor was standing there with his arms crossed, looking at me like I was a problem to be solved. Didn't realize my wife's sister was the janitor, he said with a laugh. Mr. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. I felt my face flush. Natasha was in the hallway. She laughed too. Not mean exactly, but she laughed. That was the first time something inside me cracked. The first time I realized my own sister saw me the way Trevor did, as someone beneath them. Someone doing work they'd never lower themselves to do. I finished the repair in silence. Trevor and Natasha left without saying thank you. But Dad heard about it. Mr. Rodriguez mentioned it the next day when Dad came by to check on the building. Dad didn't say anything to Trevor. Didn't confront him. That wasn't his style. But the next day, he handed me a manila folder. Just in case, Dad said quietly, pressing the folder into my hands. We were in his office, the small room on the first floor that smelled like coffee and old paper. I looked at the folder. It was thick, filled with documents. In case of what? Just hold on to it. Don't open it unless you need to. His eyes were serious. More serious than I'd seen them in months. Dad, you're scaring me. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm just being careful, Mal, making sure things are protected. I wanted to press him for more information. Wanted to ask what he meant. But he changed the subject, started talking about a permit renewal we needed to file. I put the folder in my apartment and forgot about it. Didn't open it for weeks. I wish I had sooner. Wish I'd understood what Dad was trying to tell me. Because 2 months later, he had a massive heart attack in his sleep. By the time Natasha found him the next morning, he was already gone. The funeral was a blur. Too many people. Too many flowers. Too many condolences from people who'd never really known him. Trevor stood beside Natasha, greeting people like he was already the head of the family. the new patriarch. This was a family business. He told people with practiced sadness, "We'll honor his legacy by continuing his work. We'll, like he'd been part of it all along, like he'd done anything besides criticize and condescend." Tenants came, people Dad had known for 20 years. They looked at me with sympathy, looked at Trevor with confusion. I stood there in my black dress, feeling invisible, feeling like I was disappearing. At the funeral, Trevor spoke like he was already the new landlord. He gave a eulogy that was more about himself than about Dad, about stepping up to fill big shoes and taking on new responsibilities. People nodded, believed him, saw the successful businessman in the expensive suit, and assumed he was the natural successor. Nobody looked at me in my simple dress and work-worn hands and saw someone capable of running anything. 2 weeks after we buried Dad, Trevor changed the lobby sign. I came back from the hardware store one afternoon and stopped dead when I saw it. The brass plaque that had read Tate Properties for 20 years had been replaced. Managed by Hale Property Group in polished letters. Trevor's last name. Not Tate, not Dad's name, not the name attached to 2 decades of history. My stomach twisted when I saw it. Felt like someone had erased Dad, erased me, erased everything we'd built. I found Natasha in her apartment that evening. She was cooking dinner. Trevor was on the couch watching TV. "Did you see the sign?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, the new one?" "Yeah." Trevor thought it looked more professional. She didn't even look up from chopping vegetables. "It's not Dad's name." "Well, Dad's gone, Mal." Her tone was matter-of-fact. Not cruel, but not kind either. "We have to move forward." Trevor called from the living room. "You're still welcome to help with repairs, though. We appreciate the free labor." Help. Free labor. Like I was a volunteer. A charity case they were generously allowing to contribute. When I confronted Natasha more directly, she rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes at me. "It's just branding, Mallory. Don't be dramatic." She waved her hand dismissively. "Trevor's a businessman. He knows how to present things properly. Dad built this." "Dad's gone," she interrupted. "And Trevor's here now. He has ideas, plans. He's gonna modernize the property, increase value. You should be grateful." Trevor appeared beside her, smiling that smile that never reached his eyes. "You're still welcome to help with repairs, of course. Someone needs to do the dirty work." The dirty work. My chest felt tight. "But the big decisions," Trevor continued, "the business strategy, that's above your pay grade, sweetheart." Sweetheart. The same condescending term he'd use later at the grand opening. I left their apartment feeling hollowed out. Like I was watching my father's legacy being stolen in real time and couldn't do anything to stop it. That night, I finally opened the folder Dad had given me 2 months before he died. Inside were estate documents, legal papers, things I didn't fully understand at first. I read them 3 times, my hands shaking. Dad hadn't left the building to Natasha. Hadn't split it equally between us like everyone assumed. He'd set up something more complicated, more conditional. The papers were dense with legal language, but the core was clear once I understood it. Ownership transfer conditions, signed by Dad and his attorney, notarized, dated 3 months before he died. The building would go to whoever kept it running, whoever maintained operational management, whoever completed the necessary inspections and certifications required by the city. And the operational manager listed in the documents? The person responsible for day-to-day management? Me, Mallory Tate. Not Natasha. Not Trevor. Me. But there was a catch. The final transfer required one more thing: completion of a full building safety certification. The kind that required passing city inspections for electrical, plumbing, structural integrity, and fire safety. If those certifications were completed under my management within 1 year of Dad's death, the deed transferred automatically to me. If they weren't completed, the building defaulted to being split equally among heirs, which meant Natasha and I would own it together, with Trevor controlling her half. I sat there reading and rereading, my heart pounding. Dad had set up a test, a challenge, proving that whoever cared enough to do the work should own the building. But there was a hidden clock ticking, 1 year from his death. That meant I calculated quickly, 4 months left. 4 months to get every certification completed. And Trevor had no idea. He thought he already owned it through Natasha. The next morning I called Dad's attorney, A man named Bernard Hughes who'd known our family for years. "Did you read the documents?" he asked. "Yes, but I don't understand why Dad didn't why make it so complicated?" Bernard sighed. "Your father wanted to make sure the building went to someone who'd actually take care of it, not someone who saw it as an investment property to flip or neglect. Natasha doesn't know about this. She received a standard inheritance notice. The conditional clauses weren't disclosed unless she asked to review the full estate documents, which she didn't. And the certifications? You need city safety approval in all categories. If you complete them before the 1-year mark, ownership transfers automatically. Your father wanted it earned, not given." I hung up feeling dizzy. 4 months to complete inspections that typically took 6 months to schedule and complete. 4 months while Trevor walked around taking credit for my work and treating me like hired help. Over the next weeks, I worked like I'd never worked before. Filed inspection requests, scheduled city inspectors, fixed every single code violation I could find before the inspections happened. Electrical upgrades in units that still had old wiring. Plumbing repairs throughout the building. Roof patching to pass structural integrity checks. Fire safety updates. New extinguishers, proper exit signage, functioning smoke detectors in every unit. Trevor bragged to investors while I worked in the basement. I'd hear him on phone calls, walking through the lobby with potential buyers or business partners. "We're completely renovating the building," he'd say. "Top to bottom restoration. It's gonna be a showpiece property." Like he was doing any of it. I'd be downstairs rewiring circuit breakers or replacing corroded pipes, and he'd walk potential investors past, never even mentioning that the woman in work boots was the one actually doing everything. He lined up a grand opening party, a relaunch of the building under new management. Invited everyone, current tenants, prospective renters, local business owners, his network of real estate connections. Natasha was thrilled. Bought a new dress, planned the catering, talked endlessly about making the right impression. I kept working, kept fixing, kept checking items off the inspection list. The electrical inspection passed, the plumbing inspection passed, the structural assessment came back approved. Only one remained, fire safety. Scheduled for the day of Trevor's grand opening party. The irony wasn't lost on me. That morning I was doing final checks when a pipe burst in Unit 2A. Water everywhere. Tenant panicking. No time to change clothes before the inspector arrived. I fixed the pipe in my work jeans and steel-toe boots, got the water shut off, then met the fire safety inspector looking like I'd been through a flood, which I had. The inspector took 2 hours, checked every extinguisher, every exit sign, every smoke detector, made notes on his clipboard. Finally, he nodded. "You pass. Congratulations. I'll file the certification with the city today." By the time the party started that evening, I was exhausted, covered in dust and pipe grime. My boots were soaked. My jeans had dark water stains. I should have gone home to change. Should have cleaned up. But I'd spent 3 hours fixing that burst pipe, and I needed to grab my toolbox from the maintenance closet before heading upstairs. Didn't think anyone would see me. The party was just starting. Most guests hadn't arrived yet. I walked into the lobby carrying my toolbox, focused on getting to the elevator. That's when Trevor's laugh cut through the space. "Whoa, we letting construction workers into the grand opening now?" The humiliation of that moment, standing there while he mocked my boots, my appearance, my presence, burned through me. But underneath the embarrassment was something else. Something harder. Knowledge. Secret knowledge that changed everything. Instead of arguing, instead of defending myself, I just walked past him. Took the elevator to the basement. Finished putting away my tools properly. My phone buzzed, email notification. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Subject line, City Safety Certification Approved. The email was from the city's building department. All inspections passed. Final certification complete. Filing processed and recorded. My hands went still. My heart was pounding. That meant the final requirement was met. That meant the conditional ownership clause activated. That meant I own the building. I sat in the basement for a moment, just breathing, trying to process what had just happened. Upstairs, Trevor was hosting his party, celebrating his supposed ownership, taking credit for work I'd done. My phone buzzed again, text from Bernard Hughes, Dad's attorney. Documents finalized. Deed transfer recorded with county as of 5:47 p.m. today. On my way to deliver official paperwork. Congratulations, Mallory. I stared at the message. Read it 3 times. It was done. Legal. Official. Irreversible. I could hear music and laughter filtering down from the lobby. Trevor's voice booming as he gave some kind of speech about how hard he'd worked to restore the property, about his vision, about the future, about things he hadn't done, credit he didn't deserve, ownership he didn't have. I changed out of my wet jeans into the spare clothes I kept in my locker, washed my face, pulled my hair back. But I kept the boots on. The steel toes that Trevor had mocked. The ones that had walked every inch of this building fixing problems he didn't even know existed. I walked back upstairs to the lobby quietly. Trevor had everyone's attention, standing near the new brass sign with Hale Property Group gleaming. To vision, he was saying, raising his glass. To hard work and dedication. To leadership that makes things happen. My sister beamed beside him, glowing with reflected glory. Then the front door opened. Bernard Hughes stepped inside holding a leather folder. Bernard looked professional in his suit and tie, his silver hair neatly combed. He scanned the crowd until his eyes found mine. He gave a small nod. Then he looked at Trevor. Trevor noticed him and frowned slightly. Didn't recognize Bernard. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting the answer should be no. Bernard smiled politely. "Actually, I'm here regarding the ownership confirmation for this property. I'm Bernard Hughes, attorney for the Tate estate." Trevor's expression shifted, became more attentive. "Oh, excellent. Yes, that would be me. Well, my wife and I." He gestured toward Natasha. "We're the new owners." My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Bernard opened his folder slowly. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding about the estate terms." The room was getting quieter, other conversations fading as people sensed something important happening. Trevor's smile stayed fixed, but his eyes were wary. "What kind of misunderstanding?" "According to the conditional clauses in Mr. Tate's will," Bernard said in his calm, measured voice, "ownership transfers to the operational manager upon completion of all required safety certifications." Trevor's smile started to slip. "Right, that's us. We've been managing." "The operational manager designated in the estate documents," Bernard continued, "is Mallory Tate. And as of 5:47 p.m. today, all certification requirements were satisfied." He turned toward me. The entire room turned with him. "Mallory, these are yours." He held out the folder. Official documents, transfer of deed, everything legal and binding. The silence in the lobby was complete. Even the background music seemed to have stopped, though that might have been my imagination. I walked forward, my steel toe boots loud on the marble floor. Took the folder from Bernard with steady hands, even though inside I was shaking. Opened it. Saw my name on the deed. Saw the city stamps and official seals. Saw everything that made it real and legal and final. Trevor's face had gone from confident to confused to something approaching panic. That's not possible. We own Natasha inherited. Miss Natasha Hale inherited a conditional bequest, Bernard explained, which required certain operational criteria to be met. Those criteria were met by Ms. Mallory Tate, who served as operational manager. Therefore, per the terms of the will, ownership transfers to her. Natasha finally spoke, her voice small. "Mallory, what is he talking about?" I looked at my sister, saw genuine confusion on her face. She really hadn't known about the conditional clauses, really had thought she'd inherited Dad's building automatically. "Dad left the building to whoever kept it running," I said quietly. "Who did the work? Who cared for it? Who earned it?" Trevor's laugh was nervous now, desperate. "You're joking. This is a joke, right? Some kind of legal technicality?" Bernard's expression was firm. "It's binding legal documentation, Mr. Hale. The deed is recorded with the county. Ownership transferred this afternoon." "But we..." Trevor gestured around at the party. "We planned all this. We've been managing this property." "You've been living here rent-free," I corrected. "I've been managing it, fixing it, passing inspections, doing the work." Trevor's face cycled through emotions, shock, denial, anger, and finally something close to fear as reality set in. The room was absolutely silent now, all eyes on us. My sister looked between Trevor and me, her face pale. "Mallory, I didn't know about any conditions. Dad never said." He gave me the documents 2 months before he died. He wanted to make sure the building went to someone who'd actually take care of it, not just inherit it. But I'm your sister. And you laughed when Trevor called me a janitor, when he mocked my work, when he treated me like hired help. My voice was steady but not angry, just factual. Dad knew, he saw it happening, that's why he set it up this way. Trevor tried again, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Look, this is all just, we can work this out, we're family, we can co-manage or... No, I said simply, the building is mine, legally, completely. A tenant in the crowd, Mrs. Patterson from 2C, started clapping, slowly at first, then louder. Other tenants joined in. People who'd seen me fixing their pipes and their electrical problems while Trevor took credit. The applause spread. Not everyone. Some of Trevor's business associates looked uncomfortable, but enough that it felt like validation. Trevor's face went red. You wouldn't dare kick us out. We're family. You're not that. You're welcome to stay, I interrupted. As tenants, I'll draw up a proper lease agreement. Market rate rent, like everyone else. The emphasis on tenants was quiet but unmistakable. Natasha looked like the floor had disappeared beneath her. You're serious? You're actually going to charge us rent? Everyone else pays rent, I said. Why should you be different? Because we're family. Family doesn't mock each other's work, I replied. Doesn't treat each other like servants. Doesn't erase each other's contributions. Trevor made one last attempt, his voice shifting to anger. You know what? Fine. We don't want to live in this dump anyway. We'll leave, and we'll contest this in court. You can't just... I can, Bernard interrupted smoothly, and it's already done. The deed is transferred and recorded. You're welcome to consult your own attorney, but I assure you the documentation is airtight. Mr. Tate was very thorough. Trevor looked around the room, searching for allies. Found none. The tenants were still applauding. His business associates were studying their drinks, embarrassed by association. You'll regret this, Trevor said to me, his voice low. You have no idea what you're doing. You're in over your head. I've been running this building for 2 years, I said calmly. While you were playing pretend landlord, I was doing the actual work. I know exactly what I'm doing. He grabbed Natasha's arm. Come on, we're leaving. They walked out of the party. Trevor's party, the one he'd planned to celebrate ownership he never had, in silence. The door closed behind them. The room erupted in conversation. Bernard approached me quietly. Your father would be very proud. I stood there holding the folder with the deed, feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, relieved, and somehow sad despite everything. Mrs. Patterson came over and hugged me. About time, dear. That man was insufferable. Other tenants approached. Mr. Rodriguez. The young couple from 1F, people I'd helped over the years. We knew you were the one keeping everything running, Mr. Rodriguez said. Trevor didn't know the first thing about this building. The party continued, but the energy was different now. Less polished, less pretentious, more real. Bernard pulled me aside. There are some documents you'll need to sign. Transfer paperwork for utilities, insurance updates, official management designation. We should meet tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. I know, but I suspect you'll want this finalized quickly. Before your brother-in-law tries anything legal, though I assure you he has no grounds. I nodded. Thank you, Bernard, for everything, for helping Dad set this up. It was his idea entirely. He just needed the legal structure. Bernard smiled. He knew exactly who deserved this building. He just wanted to make sure they earned it on their own merit, not inheritance. After the party wound down and people left, I walked through the building slowly. My building now. Legally and completely mine. Same hallways Dad and I had walked together. Same apartments we'd repaired. Same basement where I'd learned to fix the boiler that terrible winter. But everything felt different. Heavier with responsibility, but also lighter somehow. Free from pretending, from being dismissed, from watching others take credit. A week later, I was walking through the building again. Same routine, checking for maintenance issues, talking to tenants, making sure everything worked properly. Same steel-toe boots, same toolbox, same work jeans. But everything had changed. Tenants greeted me differently now, not with pity or confusion, with respect, with recognition of who I'd been all along. Morning, Miss Tate, called the young couple from 1F. Miss Tate, not Mallory, not the landlord's daughter, not the maintenance girl, the owner. Trevor and Natasha had moved out within 3 days. Didn't contest anything. Bernard was right, the documentation was airtight. They just left. I'd heard through family gossip that they'd rented an expensive apartment across town, that Trevor was embarrassed, that Natasha was angry with me. Part of me felt guilty. She was my sister. Family. But another part, the part that had been dismissed and mocked and treated like help, felt vindicated. Dad had seen what I couldn't see, had recognized that Natasha and Trevor would never value the building the way it deserved, would never do the work, would never understand that ownership meant responsibility, not just profit. I spent that week making changes, small ones at first. The brass plaque came down. Hale Property Group went into the trash. I ordered a new one, Tate Properties, in the same style Dad had used 20 years ago. When the new sign arrived, I installed it myself, used the same mounting brackets Dad had used for the original. Felt his presence as I worked, like he was watching me get it right. Mrs. Patterson came down to watch. "It looks just like it used to," she said with satisfaction. "That's the idea." "Your father would approve." I wanted to believe that, wanted to think I'd done what he'd hoped. That afternoon, I was in the basement fixing a water heater when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mallory? It's Natasha." I wiped my hands on a rag. "Hi." Long pause. "Trevor and we're separating." I sat down on an overturned bucket. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Her voice was bitter. "Turns out when he doesn't have a building to take credit for, he's just empty. All he talked about was getting revenge on you, suing you, proving you wrong. He couldn't let it go." "Natasha, I was so stupid," she interrupted. "I actually believed him. Believed he knew what he was doing, that he deserved to run Dad's building." "He didn't know Dad," I said quietly. "Didn't understand what the building meant. Neither did I." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Mal, for laughing, for dismissing you, for letting Trevor treat you that way." The apology surprised me. "Thank you. Do you think, could we talk sometime? Not about the building. Just as sisters?" I thought about it, about hurt and forgiveness, about family and what it actually means. "Yeah," I said. "We can talk." 2 months after the grand opening disaster, the building settled into a new rhythm. A better rhythm. I hired a property management assistant, a young woman named Crystal, who was studying architecture and needed real-world experience. She handled scheduling and tenant communications while I focused on maintenance and upgrades. Revenue improved, not because I raised rents dramatically, but because I fixed things properly. Because tenants were happy and word spread. Because people wanted to live in a building that was actually cared for. I started a renovation project Dad had always talked about but never had time for, converting the unused third-floor storage space into a small gym for tenants. Not fancy, just a few machines and free weights. Mrs. Patterson donated a treadmill. Mr. Rodriguez helped me paint. The young couple from 1F brought in yoga mats. It became a community space. People actually talked to each other in the gym, made friends. The building felt more alive. Natasha and I met for coffee every other week. Awkward at first, slowly becoming easier. She'd left Trevor, was working on rebuilding her life. We didn't talk about the building much. That felt too raw still. But we talked about Dad, about memories, about healing. "I used to resent you," she admitted one afternoon, "for being Dad's favorite. I wasn't his favorite. You were the one he taught. The one he trusted with the building." "Because you weren't interested," I said gently. "You wanted to live your own life. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted the building too," she said. "I wanted the status, the asset. I just didn't want the work." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. "Dad understood that," I said. "That's why he set it up the way he did. He wasn't punishing you. He was protecting his life's work." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I get it now. I do." Walking through the building the next day, I stopped at the basement door. The same door where Dad had collapsed that terrible winter. Where I'd learned I could handle more than I thought. The boiler hummed steadily now. New parts, proper maintenance, no more emergency breakdowns at 3 a.m. I ran my hand along the railing Dad had installed, felt the smooth wood he'd sanded himself. "I did it, Dad," I whispered to the empty space. "I kept it running." My steel-toe boots were scuffed and worn. Paint splattered from the gym renovation. Water stained from today's pipe repair in 3A. The same boots Trevor had mocked. The same boots he'd laughed at in front of everyone. Those boots had climbed ladders and crawled through crawl spaces, had stood in hardware stores at midnight and in city inspectors' offices at dawn. Those boots had earned this building one repair at a time. And the night Trevor laughed at them, the night he stood in the lobby mocking my appearance and dismissing my work, was the night he finally realized what everyone else had known for months. Those boots owned the building. A year after Dad's death, I held a small memorial gathering. Just tenants and a few family members. No pretense, no performance. We gathered in the lobby, the same space where Trevor had humiliated me, where Bernard had revealed the truth, where everything had changed. I'd put up photos of Dad throughout the years, building the property, fixing things, talking to tenants, living the work he loved. Mrs. Patterson told stories about Dad helping her move in 20 years ago. Mr. Rodriguez remembered Dad fixing his heat on Christmas Eve. The young couple from 1F who'd never met him listened with genuine interest. Natasha came, stood quietly beside me, didn't say much but didn't need to. "He'd be proud of you," she whispered at one point. "He'd be proud we're talking again," I replied. After everyone left, I stood alone in the lobby, looked at the brass plaque with Tate Properties gleaming under the lights, looked down at my boots, newer ones now but still steel toe, still practical, still ready for work. Trevor's mocking voice still echoed sometimes in my memory. "Maintenance entrance is in the back, sweetheart." But the sting was gone, replaced by satisfaction, by knowledge that I'd proven him wrong, not with words but with work, with dedication, with actually caring about the building he'd only wanted to exploit. People will judge you by appearance, by class markers, by the clothes you wear and the dirt on your hands. They'll assume the person in work boots couldn't possibly be in charge, couldn't possibly own anything, couldn't possibly matter. Sometimes the people who mock the work are the ones who've never understood what holding things together actually requires. Trevor saw an asset, a property to leverage, a status symbol. I saw my father's legacy, a living thing that needed constant care, a responsibility earned through midnight repairs and early morning inspections. Dad knew the difference. That's why he set up the conditional inheritance. Not to punish Natasha, not to reward me unfairly, but to ensure the building went to someone who'd actually do the work. I wear the boots because I do the work. I carry the toolbox because problems need solving. I walk through the building because someone needs to care. And the night Trevor laughed at my appearance, the night he tried to humiliate me in front of everyone, was the night he revealed he'd never understood any of it. He thought ownership was about control, about status, about standing in lobbies in expensive suits telling other people what to do. But real ownership is about responsibility, about showing up, about earning respect through work, not demanding it through title. Those boots walked every inch of this building, fixed every problem, passed every inspection, earned every bit of ownership. And when Trevor stood in my lobby, because it was always my lobby, even before the paperwork made it official, mocking those boots, he was announcing to everyone that he had no idea who actually ran things. No idea who'd been holding everything together. No idea that the woman in work boots owned everything he thought was his. And by the time he found out the truth, it was already too late.